May 10th, 1943. Berlin, Germany. The room is silent, a kind of deliberate silence, the kind that only comes when the walls themselves seem to listen. The soft glow of a desk lamp casts a pool of light over the pile of papers that sits in front of the Gestapo officer. He's hunched over the documents, furrowing his brow, chewing at the edge of his pen. The names on the paper seem to blur together, but one stands out and has stood out for months now. Every lead points back to her. Her name is always whispered, a name that does not linger long enough to be written down in any substantial way. Her identity is more a shadow than a fact, more an idea than a presence. Yet, every day, the officers working in this sterile, claustrophobic room find themselves circling closer to her, the architect of a rebellion that has crippled their operations from within. They have photographs, but they're always taken from a distance, blurry. Perhaps she's never meant to be seen. A glimpse here, a flash of her face during an unexpected raid, but no concrete evidence. Her identity is like smoke, vanishing just as quickly as it is captured. And the harder they search, the more they realize the truth. They cannot arrest what they cannot see. The officers, desperate for any piece of real intelligence, pore over reports of sabotage, bombings that have crippled supply lines, trains derailed at the last moment, shipments of arms intercepted. Each one of these acts seems like the work of someone who understands the system, who knows its weak spots. It feels personal, too personal for mere soldiers or mercenaries. This woman, whoever she is like a ghost moving through the cracks in their empire. But that's the paradox of it. She's everywhere and nowhere. A ghost? Yes, but a ghost with a purpose. Her touch is in every operation, in every successful mission, but she leaves no trace of herself. She is the axis around which the entire resistance turns. Yet her presence is too elusive to be captured. They begin to call her the architect, though they have no idea what she truly looks like, let alone who she is. They think that calling her this might give them some measure of control, a psychological victory of sorts, naming the unnamed. But there is another paradox they refuse to acknowledge. The more they try to track her down, the more they reveal their own vulnerability. The cracks in their own empire, once invisible to the average citizen, are now exposed, and they don't know how to fix them. She's everywhere in their reports, everywhere in their failures, but they cannot pin her down. It's as though she understands them better than they understand themselves. They have their informants, the people they thought were loyal, the collaborators who know where the resistance hides, who know how to betray the dissidents. But every time they close in on one of the rebels, the network shifts and the information becomes obsolete. She is always one step ahead. She can't be found in the same way a soldier is found. They think of her as a strategist, an elusive figure that no one can fully grasp. But the truth is simpler, yet more dangerous. She is not hiding, not in the conventional sense, anyway. She is embedded so deeply within the network that no one person can truly trace her. She is simply too integral, too woven into the fabric of resistance, to be separated from it. At night, in the underground bunkers, officers shake their heads. They convene over dimly lit maps, tracking supply routes and planning raids. But no matter how hard they try to plan, their pursuit of the architect has become an obsession. Their time is wasted on vague descriptions from reluctant informants. A woman, maybe in her 30s. Dark hair, tall, or maybe short. Could be anyone, could be no one. This is the closest they ever get. They try everything. They interrogate anyone even remotely connected to the network. They bring in villagers, merchants, anyone who might have seen something, anyone who might know anything. But no one speaks her name. It's as if she exists only in the shadows of their own paranoia, an idea made flesh. And the more they try to catch her, the more they unravel, like a fraying rope that keeps slipping from their grasp. The officers curse their luck, but there is something else there, beneath their frustration. A deeper sense of futility, a realization that maybe, just maybe, they're not supposed to catch her. That maybe, in the vast machinery of the war, This woman is simply too central to remove. She is the spine of a movement that cannot be stopped by force alone. To truly defeat her, they would have to destroy the very people she's fighting for, the very people she's inspiring to resist. But in all of their papers, their maps, their plans, they cannot acknowledge the truth that they have already lost. They just don't know it yet. The Gestapo officers sit in their smoke-filled rooms, their minds racing with frustration. They don't have enough to arrest her. They don't have a clear picture of who she is, or even where she might be. They only know one thing for sure. The architect is out there. They can feel her. And as their frustration mounts, they start to wonder if they've already missed their chance. The war is not a war of uniforms anymore. It's a war of ideas. And her idea, that one person can change the course of a nation by fighting in the shadows, by slipping through the cracks, is winning. In their minds, she's still a ghost. But in the hearts of the resistance, she's more than that. She's a symbol. And that, as the officers realize too late, is a power no amount of force can stop. October 14th, 1943. Paris, France. The flat is nothing remarkable. On the outside, it blends seamlessly into the narrow, cobbled streets of Paris, an unassuming part of the city that the Germans have never bothered to mark. From the outside, it might look like any other place in the district, but inside, it's a different world entirely. The soft hum of typewriters fills the air, punctuated by the scratch of pens on paper. Maps, both military and civilian, are spread across the worn wooden table, their edges curling slightly from use. Handwritten notes, hastily scrawled, lie scattered amongst the piles. The walls are adorned with old photographs, faces of men and women who have worked tirelessly, quietly, for a cause that seems impossible. This is a different kind of warfare, the kind fought not with bombs, but with information, strategy, and silent courage. The woman at the center of it all moves between the cluttered tables, her presence a calm in the whirlwind of activity around her. She doesn't stand out. To the people who work with her, she's just another face in the crowd. She has no grand gestures, no speeches to stir them. Instead, she speaks with quiet determination, offering precise instructions, guiding every move with a subtle hand. No one notices how often she slips in and out of the room without a word, disappearing just as quietly as she came. She doesn't need to draw attention to herself. In fact, she's perfected the art of blending in, of fading into the background while pulling every string in the network. Outside, the war is a cacophony of violence, the sound of bombers roaring overhead, the clash of soldiers in the streets. But here, in this room, it's as though time has slowed down. Each task is measured, deliberate, each step calculated. For the men and women working here, there is a singular focus, to outsmart an enemy that is as oppressive as it is relentless. At the heart of it is the woman who holds everything together. Her name is never spoken aloud in the room, not out of secrecy, but out of habit. She doesn't need her name to be known. Her work speaks for itself. Under her guidance, sabotage operations have become a systematic effort, an intricate web of resistance that stretches from the heart of Paris to the far corners of occupied France. There are no grand gestures here, no heroic speeches. It's all about small, deliberate actions that ripple outwards, undermining the enemy one act at a time. Her team is composed of ordinary people, people who have been overlooked by history, by the Gestapo, by everyone. A baker, a seamstress, a former teacher. These are the faces that populate the resistance network she's built. They are not soldiers. They are civilians, misfits who, under ordinary circumstances, would never meet. Yet, under her leadership, they are becoming something greater than themselves. She's created a machine, not with weapons or power, but with the most unlikely of tools, human ingenuity. The woman's strength lies not in her ability to lead through force, but in her ability to adapt, to make each operation feel like an extension of the lives of those involved. There are no formal commands, no rigid hierarchies. She gives them a mission, and they take it up as their own. It's a kind of quiet rebellion, one that is not marked by headlines or public praise, but by the small victories that quietly disrupt the enemy's grip on the city. Her methods are unconventional. She has no need for high-tech gadgets or military-grade equipment. She uses what is available, what is familiar. A map torn from a bookstore, a stolen bicycle, a bag of sugar smuggled from market. These are her tools. She's learned how to work within the system, how to exploit its weaknesses without ever being detected. She understands that the key to survival is not brute strength, but subtlety. To be seen is to be caught. To disappear is to win. But even the most meticulous plans have their flaws. There's a moment, always, when a network faces its greatest test. A betrayal, a slip-up, an informant who becomes too eager, too careless. And when that moment comes, the woman knows that there is no turning back. Her mind works quickly, recalculating, shifting the strategy, finding new avenues to take. But even she cannot shield everyone from the inevitable fallout. There's a brief silence in the room as the team receives the news. One of their own has been captured. The Gestapo is closing in on a vital location, and there's no time left to waste. In the days before, the woman had sensed that something was amiss. She knew the risks were higher now, that their quiet war had drawn more attention. But there was no time for hesitation. The next steps are already unfolding in her mind. The woman looks around the room at her team. They are frightened, but she doesn't show it. She moves with purpose, as though each step brings them closer to the victory they've fought so hard to achieve. "Get to your positions," she says, her voice steady. There's no time to lose. In the midst of the chaos, she remains calm. She has to. It's in her blood now. This quiet, unsung courage that pulses through her, sustaining her even when everything seems on the brink of collapse. The war is not won by those who fight with the loudest voices or the most advanced technology. It's won by those who can adapt, who can think on their feet and move when everyone else is frozen. She has spent years honing that skill, and now, when everything is on the line, it's the only thing that matters. As the hours stretch into the night, the woman watches from the shadows as her network scatters through the streets of Paris. They move swiftly without a trace. They have learned her ways, the ways of stealth and subtlety, and they carry them forward as their own. They're no longer just pawns in her game. They are players in their own right. The woman knows the risks. Every step they take brings them closer to the enemy's grasp. But she also knows that she's created something greater than herself. A network that can't be stopped by force alone, a web that stretches far beyond the borders of the city. She watches as the pieces fall into place, as the small victories accumulate. The network is alive, breathing, growing. They're no longer just resisting. They are winning. March 8th, 1945. Paris, France. The city is quieter now. The once persistent hum of warplanes has diminished, and the streets, though still scarred from the battles, have begun to feel something like peace again. But in the shadows, something is missing. The underground rooms are silent now. No more clattering typewriters. No more whispered conversations. No more frantic scurrying between safe houses. The war is winding down, but for the woman who had once been the silent architect of it all, nothing feels settled. She walks the streets of Paris with a mask of calm, but inside, there's an emptiness. Her hands rest lightly on the edges of her coat as she moves through the crowds, her steps measured but without purpose. The liberation of Paris is now a memory, a triumph made bittersweet by the price she has paid, the price her network has paid. The war is over, and yet the victory feels hollow. She had fought for a cause, for a future that she believed in, but now that the fighting is done, the world is shifting again, and she is being swept away in its tides. There are celebrations. The streets are filled with cheering, with flags waving, with soldiers marching. But she is not part of it. Her victory, the victory of the network she helped build, is not celebrated here. It is not her name that is being shouted, not her face that is on the lips of those who fought. The men who led the armies, the generals, the politicians, they are the ones who stand in the spotlight now. Their faces are plastered across newspapers and banners. And she is just another face in the crowd. Invisible, forgotten, For a moment, the weight of it is unbearable. She has given everything to this cause. She sacrificed her safety, her anonymity, her sense of self. She had been willing to die for it, to ensure that the resistance could carry on, that the small victories would pile up until they became an avalanche. And now, after all of it, the sabotage, the espionage, the countless lives disrupted and saved, she has been erased. In the grand narrative of the war, she has no place. Her contribution is invisible. But there is another layer to this story, a paradox that no one seems willing to see. She had outsmarted the Nazis, had stayed hidden for so long, had remained undetected in the heart of their operations. Her network had flourished precisely because she was invisible. But now, in the aftermath, it is her invisibility that condemns her. Her reward for being central, for being the thread that tied everything together, is to be forgotten. She is a casualty of history's tendency to elevate the loudest voices, the most visible figures. And in the rush to rewrite the story of the war, her name is swept aside, her impact ignored. She stands outside a cafe, her back to the wall, watching the world celebrate. She knows the irony, the bitter sting of it. All that she has done, all that her people have fought for, has been erased from history. And it wasn't just a matter of recognition. It was a matter of respect, of being seen for the contribution she made. But the world, it seems, has already moved on, and there is no space for a woman like her in its grand retelling. But there is no time to dwell on this. The woman knows that the world will not change for her, that history will not bend to her will. The clock is ticking, and she cannot afford to be lost in the shadows of her own disappointment. She has always known that the resistance would not survive on its own. There would come a time when it would be dismantled, when it would fade into the background, like so many other movements that had come before it. She has been part of something larger than herself, something that has changed the course of history, but she cannot stay rooted in that past. The world is moving forward, and she must too. She slips into the side streets, avoiding the crowds. The victory of the war is not her victory, and she knows that now. She had thought that by helping to bring down the Nazis, by helping to free her country, she would find her own sense of freedom, her own sense of purpose. But now that the war is over, it's as though the world has forgotten her. Forgotten the sacrifices, forgotten the quiet, unseen work that made it all possible. And it is in this silence, in this absence of recognition, that she realizes the full weight of what she has lost. Her team, the people who worked alongside her, who risked everything in their quiet rebellion, are scattered now as well. Some have disappeared into the crowds. Others have left the country, trying to escape the chaos of the war's end. The woman is left with nothing but the remnants of a movement that no one will remember. There is no plaque with her name on it, no monument to the work she did, no memorial to the lives she saved. The recognition she sought, and in truth, never truly expected, is nowhere to be found. Her legacy is not written in stone. It is buried in the files of the defeated, in the hands of those who took the glory and ran with it. And yet, there is a deeper truth that she cannot ignore. The network she built may have been forgotten, but it was never about the glory, never about the recognition. It was about the people, about the quiet acts of defiance that had kept hope alive in the darkest days. It was about the small victories, the moments when the enemy faltered, the times when they had slipped through the cracks. It was about standing up in the face of overwhelming odds and saying, "We will not be broken.